Welcome back to Disconnected. I'm your host, Jessica, and today I am talking with Dr. Barbara Turnage. Dr. Turnage is the Associate Dean of the College of Behavioral and Health Sciences and a professor of social work at Middle Tennessee State University. So welcome to the podcast, Dr. Turnage.
Thank you, and I'm really pleased you invited me.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you here. Can you tell us about your areas of expertise and your experience in social work?
I've done every type of social work there is, except although I did child welfare, I did not work for the Department of Child Welfare Services. And I worked with people in the criminal justice system, but I did not work for the criminal justice system. I worked for organizations that supported those individuals. So most of my work has been clinical work. I'm a clinical social worker, but also I've worked with the homeless. I've worked with domestic violence. I've worked with child abuse and adoptions and neglect. I've worked with the school systems, and I've worked with universities. We were called counselors, but still doing social work. And I've worked with outpatient psychiatric services. I've worked with home-based psychiatric services and family reunification. Again, I've done almost every type of social work there is. I love being a social worker, and I love that my field is so broad and that the degrees that I have allowed me to do so much to assist others.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like you have done a lot, so that's fantastic. So do you think that being social and building relationships are an important part of human life?
Unfortunately, we learned this last year how important it is. We learned the hard way because of COVID and being shut in. But yeah, it's very important to be connected to individuals. It's very important to have somebody that you can bounce ideas off or just enjoy you. I love my personality, but I like it better when my friends love it also. And when they enjoy my jokes or whatever, and my family don't enjoy my jokes as much, but they're a captive audience. So, but it really, being social is really important to mental health. And social could be that I love TV shopping. And you'll notice on there that some of the individuals who call in are older and don't have people to interact with. And you can tell by the nature of the conversation, they're just looking for someone to interact with, to be social with, especially during COVID, because if they didn't have anybody that they lived with, then no one was really coming in. If they got, like, say, food orders or clothing orders, they left it outside, so they didn't engage those individuals like they probably had before. So they found unique ways to be social.
Yeah. In what ways do you think that people are impacted when they are socially isolated or socially deprived?
Of course, first is the mental health, and then becomes the physical health. Because when your mental health suffers, your physical health then comes next. You get lethargic. What's the point of taking baths or showers or changing clothing? People sat around with their pajamas a lot last year and some of this year. Because, what was the point? No one was going to see them. They weren't going to interact with anybody. And unfortunately, what happens, a lot of people stop doing the things that help them be healthy, which was take their medications. So a lot of things happen when people were shut in. I'm using that as an example because that's one of the things that we all can see. Say you break a part of your body and you have to depend on the person you live with to carry that leg. When you want to get up or do things because you're wheelchair bound, you cannot keep that cast off the ground and that foot off the ground if you have a cast from your thigh to your foot. And I'm using this example because this happened. When the person would go to work, the only thing they had was to look out the window. That was the only way that they could connect to the outside because they could not get up on their own. And the person forgot to open the shades. You're totally isolated then inside with just you and the TV. Think about how devastating it is for a person who's used to being active and being out amongst people.
Yeah. So you mentioned some of those behavioral effects, and you said that there are mental and emotional health effects. Can you go into the specifics of some of those?
So say people who have mental health issues, and part of their issues is reality testing. They might hallucinate and they cannot know what isn't real. If they're not able to interact with others, then what do they do with that? They believe it's real and they act upon what they believe. Whereas reality tests or not, we all act on what we believe. And so say you're walking outside and somebody looks at you funny. It could be that they stepped on the pedal and they having pain, But if you're having problems with reality testing, you think they look at you funny because of the way you look or what you got on, or there's something going on with you. So when you're isolated, you don't have anybody that you can deal with those issues with. You don't have your workers, you don't have the community. And even if you live in, a lot of the people who were in those home living environments weren't able to socialize with each other the way they did before, because you had to maintain that separateness to make sure that you're safe. I'm talking about during COVID. You had to maintain a lot of separateness. So you had to stay in your room and you had limited interaction.
Right.
People don't think about that,
Right.
or they don't think about judgment issues. There's some mental health illnesses that impact your judgment. I was saying earlier about shopping on television or shopping on Amazon. Amazon is one of those times when people blow their budget, when they have, those 2 days or a week or whatever. If you have poor judgment and there's no one around to help you moderate yourself, you've spent money you don't have, or money that's supposed to go towards paying a particular bill or buying medication. You have poor judgment. You're trying to satisfy that need then and not thinking about what comes next.
Is there a certain age group that is affected more by diminished socialization than others?
Older individuals, especially when they lose some of their mobility. We in Murfreesboro don't have a transportation system like some of the major cities do. And so when you have less mobility, in some of the major cities, you're still able to get out and get around. In Murfreesboro and even in Nashville, we don't have very good public transportation. And so I think that impacts people's mental health a lot too, because they're not as free to get out and about. They have to depend on other people. Places like this, I can't get to the grocery store on my own if I'm in a wheelchair or if I'm using a walker or whatever. We don't have a similar public transportation system as these larger areas that allowed you to do that.
Yeah. What about children? How are children affected by isolation or distancing?
One of the things that with children is that that's how they learn. Every interaction for children, regardless of age, is a learning experience. And for all of us, really, it's a learning experience, but especially for the very young child. They're introduced to the world with every interaction. But if that person who's the primary caretaker is not available to them, then they're left to find ways to take care of themselves. And I'm not just talking about diaper changes or feedings of things of that nature, but children learn from interaction. And sitting in front of TV is not interaction. Giving them an iPad is not the same type of interaction. They need social interaction with a person who's there to really fully learn. Because when you're interacting with a kid and you're right there, you're explaining to them. Explaining on, TV, you don't have that touch factor. You don't have that social, closeness.
Right. Are there long-lasting implications or effects of isolation when children are isolated when they're younger?
That's a yes and no. It depends on the isolation leads to physical growth issues or health issues. But when it's social issues, we can grow out of those things with the right type of environment. Most of those, you can change those. But what happens a lot with our children, and not just talking about with isolation, learned behavior. When you learn and correct things, it's harder to relearn to correct things. Maybe some of them will have issues trying to learn how to correctly interact with individuals, how to make adjustments. I use only kids, and I know this is not the same for all only children, but if you think about it, only children are isolated from other children when they're at home, because it's just them and their primary caretakers. They don't learn, and I'm not saying all only children, I'm just giving, an example. They don't learn how to share the same kind of way. They don't learn how to be upset with somebody and still have to be in their presence. When you get mad at your sibling, they're not going anywhere. So you learn how to accommodate people. You learn how to get over some of the issues, and you learn what is important and what is not important. You learn how to not always be right, or to be right in a way that you don't have to hurt the other person when you have siblings. A lot of only children don't learn those until they either get a significant other or they learn that with their friends, or they learn that in school systems. One of the things about 3, 4, 5-year-olds, whether they are in school or not, daycare teaches them how to share. Daycare teaches them how to socialize, how to explain their needs, how to understand other people. So a lot of only children learn that early on when they are in childcare settings. And so, but when you have siblings at home, you learn it in a different way, because those kids in a childcare setting either can leave that, but when you go home, those people are always there. So you learn how to interact in a different way. So isolation does matter, but most of it you can grow out of. You can learn something different.
Okay.
If you have a flexible cognitive ability.
Yeah. I've actually read about a concept called neuroplasticity, which is the phenomenon of you learning and having new experiences, and then your brain reshapes based on those experiences. Right. And so I've read that a lack of socialization actually can decrease that. But like you were saying, it can be built back up through relearning, and whether getting therapy or just going back out in the world and having new experiences and meeting new people, it can be reversed.
Most of us are able to relearn and continue to learn throughout our lives.
Can people adjust to a lack of socialization, or does it just cause compounding stress over time?
It all depends on that person. And I like using extrovert and introvert because people usually know what those are, not just from the Myers-Briggs, but there's also different types of extroverts and introverts. So those introverts will not have the same type of issue with being alone for long stints of time, but those extroverts will. And so FaceTime, phone, there's other ways to interact with individuals without having to be socially close to those individuals. And I like physical close because, we're talking about social distance, but there are a lot of people we was already social distant from that we need to be physically distant from. The physical distance that we have now with a lot of individuals impacts us differently based upon whether or not we learn or we think from interaction and talking things out. And if I have to talk things out, and that's how I'm processing it, I need somebody to do that with. Even if they understand what I'm talking about or not, doesn't matter. Well, we have social media in a way, or telephones and things that we can do that and don't have to be physically close to people, unless you're the kind of person who needs somebody with you.
Do you think if we didn't have technology in the way that we do now, would that be a completely different story?
Oh, yes. Last year or the year and a half, 17 months, however you want to say it, would have been really different for a lot of people if we did not have these technological ways to interact.
Yeah. Do you think that if we didn't have technology, would people then be able to adjust to a lack of socialization?
Well, okay, so think about monks. Not everybody can become a monk, especially the ones that live off by themselves and don't interact with other people, or live in a community and still don't talk. Not everybody could do that. So if we did not have a technology that we could connect each other the way we have, it would bother or it impact some people more than it would impact others. But that's based upon our own innate abilities. We came with certain abilities or skill sets, however you want to see it, that allows us to be more flexible and some of us not to be as flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of the best ways to stay connected when people can't interact face to face?
I like letters. I like cards. So I bought, it's a booklet of cards, and I've sent these to my friends or whoever, and there's no certain time. It's just like if I think of them, I send them a card. I sent one to my daughter one day, and she said, how did you know I needed some, and the card just talked about how much I love you and believe in you or whatever. And I said, I just wanted you to know that I am always on your side. She said, the day I got that card, I needed it. So I think letters and cards and things of that nature. And what happens is that the emotion that the people get that you send that to makes a difference. So I don't think it's just technology always. I think good old letters, writing to people how you feel about them. So, there's so many different ways that we can let people know we care about them than just always calling them, and sometimes when you call people and you hear their voice and they say, I'm okay. No, you don't sound okay. Yesterday when you were okay, you were more chipper. What is going on? A lot of times we don't ask that, but sometimes we don't ask that because we don't want to know that. We might not always be in emotional state at that point in time to deal with somebody else's stuff. I have to be emotionally secure to be able to help you with your stuff. And if I'm having a bad day or a bad moment, then I can't help you. I can't be there for you. And sometimes we forget that about other people. And we think that they're always supposed to feed our need and not that they need to replenish themselves. So being by yourself, find ways to replenish yourself. There's some things I do that I love because it makes me feel good. I still exercise. And I call myself a street walker. I like walking the streets on the pavement. I just want to be outside and I want to see what's going on. There doesn't have to be a soul out there for me to feel good about that, because the trees are changing. The animals are changing. Things are changing every day. And if you're too caught up in interacting with people, you miss these other type of things that's going on. So anyway, my friends know I use those euphemisms. It's a social work thing. I'm a street walker.
Hey, that's good. That's good that you can find something that you really enjoy and just you need hobbies, do things on your own. It's really important.
Well, and the walking makes you feel better. It's better for your health. And you've done something. You've changed your environment.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. What about other forms of connecting that are not necessarily directly addressed to you? Like you were saying about the letters, which are really amazing to receive and to give to people. But what about things like music or books that help us connect to people?
There are certain songs I just love, and everybody has those songs. Right now I'm stuck on Sam Smith because I've used it so much and went over so many potholes. It has places where it skips. So instead of 10 songs, I have 5. But I just love it. The others, books. I love books. So I keep books on my desk. So when I'm having a bad moment, every morning when I come in, the first thing I do besides making my tea, I read Acts of Faith. And it's a daily meditation book. And it helps me start off on a positive. And per se, it's not a religious type of thing. It's more of a spiritual type of thing. It's to lift my spirit. I try to get myself in a position early on in the day when I come in that I'm positive, and then I can influence other people to be positive. And I don't have to respond in hurtful ways to things that happen. Because when you start your day on a negative, then you say and do things that are not positive of other people. So centering yourself, finding books or finding music, or just being happy. The fact that you got up that day, that you're able to see, walk, think, talk, drink, eat, and everything else is fantastic. Think about how many people did not get up or woke up and did not have those capacities to do those things. So every day I see as a blessing. Every day I think is a gift from God. And I think that we need to share that with people. But I've been told I'm a little too happy, but that's okay. I'd rather be a little too happy than a little too angry and a little too mean, a little too hateful. I'm good with being a little too happy.
Yes. Yeah. If that's the criticism you're getting, that's a good criticism to have.
Yeah. I've learned that it's perspective.
Yeah.
You need to take a perspective that's what's best for you and those that depend on you. And if you do that, then you're fine.
Yeah. I think it's amazing how music and books and these things that other people have created really do influence our moods, and they influence how we live. And especially you're talking about all these positives, and especially lifting us up out of negative moods, like being lonely and things. Yeah. These things can help us in those times, or even if we're not interacting directly with other people, these things that people have made can help us. Do you think that these things like music, books, technology, and even talking directly to people through technology, do you think that is a viable replacement for face-to-face interaction?
No, I don't think anything replaces face-to-face interactions. I think we all need that. When you come in contact with people, this biochemical stuff that happens to your body, you need that. When you see somebody that you love, your body changes, your mood changes, you smile or whatever, unless you're mad at them, then that changes too. But, think about those of us that have children, and when we see them do something that they hadn't done before, it's just like something goes all over you. I FaceTimed my granddaughter. I said, I just wanted to see your face. She, okay, Granny. I said, I love you too. She threw me a kiss, I threw her one. But still, that little bit of interaction, that was letting her know that I wanted to make sure that she was okay, that I love her, and I'm always going to be there for her. So sometimes it could be over the social media, but seeing her face to face is totally different. Usually if I haven't seen her in a while, the first thing we do for the first day or so is a whole lot of hugging and kissing. It's not like it's just all young kids with that. Older kids. My daughter, and she'll hate this, she hates when I talk about her, but there's days she'll call and say, I just want to hear your voice. And I said, always know I love you. And that's all she needs. She needs to know that her mother's there who loves her. And if it's a really bad day, she'll FaceTime so she can see me and get that renewal. But, sometimes you just need to be refueled by people love you no matter what, that unconditional love.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not the same as if you could be there and do that for them. You know that even with your parents, seeing them face to face is so much better than just doing it on the phone. But the phone will do if that's all you can do, or the iPad or computer, whatever you're using. If that's all you have, then that'll do. But being there with them and in close physical contact with them is so much better.
Right. Yeah. I was actually watching a video of a man who is living in Europe. He's lived in France over the pandemic. He was visiting there and then got stuck there during all of the lockdowns. His parents live in the US. And so he's making this video about coming back to surprise his parents with a visit. But I thought it was interesting the word he used. He said, I want to reconnect with them.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been able to talk to them throughout this entire time over the phone and over FaceTime, but he said that specifically, I want to reconnect with them and be with them in person. So it's interesting because regardless of what we can kind of put it down to about like the biology but we know that there's just something that's irreplaceable about that.
Yes. Well, we're social creatures.
Yeah.
That is built in our DNA and we need that.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this conversation or to this episode?
Well, I just liked how well you prepared for this conversation.
Thank you.
I'm just giving you a compliment on how well you prepared.
Thank you.
No, it makes a difference. I could have just thought that and not shared that.
Yeah.
Knowing that I felt that way made you feel differently. That's the social interaction. Also letting people know that they matter and that something was positive.
Yeah. And
I just think we need to do more of that. Yeah, see? I just think we need to do more of that. I don't like flowers, but I like the statement, we need to give people their flowers while they're alive and not when they're dead.
Mm.
I believe that every chance we get, if somebody does something wonderful, we need to let them know that. So I think you did a fantastic job preparing for this.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming here and talking with me. Thank you for that.
No, I've enjoyed it. Again, I'm a social worker. I like talking.
Hey, that helps me out so much. So much.